Hello, Northeast Magnet. This is Mrs. Simmons yet again. Today I am talking about email etiquette. I want to go over a crash course in proper online communication. This is really important stuff, things that will affect you for your entire life professionally. So let's get started. So why email etiquette? Why is this important? Well, first, nobody appreciates a rude email. So having good etiquette here helps you maintain really good relationships. We also really want you to succeed in the workplace and in college, and part of that success comes from the relationships you build, and often those relationships might start an email or they are maintained through that. This is also a skill that you will absolutely use throughout your life, and you will find yourself contacting working adults in a professional context quite often. It's pretty normal for this to be a common way to communicate with people. So the potential use of email here. So you might use this to contact your teachers. That's the most immediate use of email, right? You are going to contact them about your grades, about missing work, about your absence, looking for help from them, okay? This is one of the most important things you'll be using email for right now. But also you might make appointments with your counselors or your teachers. Maybe you need a little help or you need to do something with your schedule, a counselor is who you might contact for that. Also, maybe you need help from a teacher, you need some one-on-one tutoring from them. If you reach out via email, you can make that appointment and work with their schedule. You also will probably be seeking a job or an internship at some point, if not already. Email is a part of that. You might contact a representative at a college you're interested in, or communicate with your boss or coworkers. So really, email is a life skill, not just a school skill. Although a lot of people sometimes think that all we do in school is for school. It's really not the case. A lot of what we do will prepare you for future tasks. So the most basic expectations for an email, just one email. First, always use a professional email address. So what I'm saying here is if you have a personal email address and it's something like crazyguy@gmail.com, you want to make that a little more professional. So your first name, your last name, something like that. The good news for you right now is that the district has already created this for you. So you actually have two email addresses. They all go to the same account. One is the one you're most used to, the ID number at usd259.net. But there's also another one that is your preferred first name last name at students.usd259.net. Both of these are professional, but if you're going to be reaching out to someone outside of the district, we do suggest that you use the name email. So that's the first expectation. The second expectation is to always have a simple and clear subject line. Then always have a professional greeting and sign off, and those can be simple and short and easy. And then always try and be concise. So get to your point. I'm going to get into these last three bullets a little more heavily in the next few slides. So first up is subject lines. So why is that important? Why do I have to have a subject line? Well, with so many emails flying around every day, it's a good idea to have a quick subject line that helps your recipient organize and prioritize, okay? So they know exactly what that email is probably about, and they can prioritize based on that. And it lets us decide if we need to look at something immediately, like it's a right now issue, or it's something that I can come back to it in an hour and it's not a big deal. Additionally, keep it clear, okay? So don't leave it blank. Again, that's not useful. Avoid all caps or kind of plaintive begging language or accusatory language, like you're accusing your recipient of something. And do not type your entire message in your subject line. It actually gets really hard to read that whole thing if it's longer than, 4 or 5 words, okay? The next thing I have here are just some examples and non-examples of subject lines. So 3 really good examples are here up at the top. English 4, grade question. Or maybe you put request for help. Or let's say you're trying to apply for a job. You could put job openings at maybe Sephora, if that's where you want to apply. Non-examples though, again, we don't type in all caps, so we don't say fix my grade. First of all, if the grade is that way, there may have just been a typo, so there's no reason to be so rude about it. Also, it might be that you just turned in the assignment and the teacher hasn't had the chance to grade it. There's all kinds of reasons why we wouldn't want to do something like that. Additionally, the second bullet on the non-examples, you want to meet this student. Okay, in the age of YouTube and like clickbaity catchphrases, we don't do that in email. Don't do it, okay? We want to be professional here and not a clickbait person, okay? And then the next one here, please hire me. I'm a good worker. That's not great either. It's a little plaintive, has a little bit of a begging tone to it, and that doesn't start things off well. And then this last bullet is if I wrote my entire message in the subject line. My technology wasn't working, so I had to restart my computer, but then my account was locked and I had to call to get my password reset. What did I miss? All of that in just the subject line is way too much. That's way too hard to read. So the next thing I have is professional greetings and sign-offs. So once I get into the body of my actual email and paragraphs, I need to be polite and professional here. It's good to use appropriate titles if you know your contact. So Mr. or Mrs. or Ms. if you're not sure. And then it also opens opportunity for further conversation with your sign-off, and I'll show you what I mean in a couple slides. So some examples and non-examples of good greetings. So one might be dear so-and-so. Now that might feel weird. Maybe you don't want to say dear Mrs. Simmons. You don't have to. You could just say hello, Mrs. Simmons, or good morning, good afternoon, Mrs. Simmons, or you could just say Mrs. Simmons, but at least you have some sort of greeting. Non-examples are yo, howdy, and sup. No, we're not going to do that, okay? We want to make sure that we're maintaining professional academic registers. There's nothing wrong with that when you're talking to your friends. There really isn't, okay? But when we're in school, we want to work towards a more academic register as much as we can. So we want to avoid those kinds of greetings. With sign-offs, okay, we have a lot of opportunity here with sign-offs. You can say sincerely, you can say best or best wishes, you could say thank you for your attention, looking forward to working with you, and always include your name. I know your name comes up with your email, but it's always nice to include that, okay? So those are some examples here, and notice how on some of these, I'm inviting further conversation. So looking forward to working with you is one of those things where I'm saying, I hope to hear back from you soon. I can't wait to actually collaborate with you, that sort of thing. And then with sign-off examples, or non-examples, sorry, we don't want to say things like see ya or later, okay? Again, just too low of a register, too informal, too conversational. We want to be up in that more academic register. So if you have nothing else to say, just say thanks and then sign off with your name. Now, let's talk about the actual bulk of your information, okay? The body of your email after you've done your greeting. The first thing is be concise, be short, sweet, get straight to the point, okay? If you can't say what you need to say in one or two brief paragraphs, you might need to just ask the teacher to meet with you at another time. So instead of asking all these convoluted questions, maybe you just say, hey, Mrs. Simmons, is there a way that we could meet at 2:30 today so that I could ask you some questions about the homework? Okay, something like that. And then for purpose, again, we want to be to the point because we get, as teachers, so many emails, and I bet you are seeing something very similar in your own email inbox. So when you get straight to the point, it makes life a little bit easier because we know if we need to respond right away or if it could take a little bit of time before we get to it. Here are two examples, an example and a non-example, of trying to be short and concise in your message. So an example here, I'm feeling a little confused about step 3 of the math problem. Could we meet to discuss this after school? So I have stated clearly as the student what I'm struggling with and what I'd like to have happen. Now, it may not happen that day, okay? Maybe the teacher will email you back and say, could you tell me specifically what you're stuck with, okay? But at least I have been clear in what I need. Now, my non-example gives lots of background information that honestly doesn't matter. So my dog was really needing to go outside, so I got up during class to let her out, but when I came back in, I noticed that she was still outside and I needed to let her back in, so I got up again. I missed step 3 of the instructions for that math problem, so I don't know what to do. My dog is very cute, though. Can you help me? That was way too much happening there. Okay, all the teacher really needs to know is, I did not get step 3 of the instructions. I'm not sure what to do. Can you give me some further instructions and ideas? Okay, so keep that in mind. Get straight to the point. We don't need excuses. We don't need a long story of why this happened. Just get to what you need to tell us, okay? Now, I want to talk a little bit about tone in your writing. It is very easy to have your tone misconstrued if you do little things, certain word choices that could make it seem rude or overly demanding, and we want to avoid that. You also want to avoid coming off as overly sad or pitiful, like my dog ate my homework, that sort of thing. So consider how well you know the audience. If you know them really well, you have a good relationship, it could be slightly more informal. But if you don't know them, or let's say they're a boss, you want to be a little bit more formal about that message, okay? So let's look at 2 separate examples here of formal tone versus informal tone. And this is from a teacher. So a more formal email might say, "Dear students, final schedules are now posted. Please log into the portal to view this. Sincerely, Mr. Smith, Northeast Magnet." But maybe Mr. Smith has a really good relationship with his students, so he chooses to adopt a more informal tone. "Hey class, FYI, the final schedules are posted. Check them out ASAP, Mr. Smith." So it just depends on how well you know that person. Notice though that even the informal tone has a greeting, it has a quick body that gets to the point, and a sign off, "Mr. Smith," okay? So it still has the necessary components. It just happens to be a much more informal tone, okay? I will tell you that I would recommend that you remain a little bit more formal when it comes to communicating with staff here at the building. Now, other expectations when it comes to emails. The first thing, don't use strange fonts. It can just be really hard to read, and then we can't really get back to you because we don't even know what it says, okay? It takes a lot of extra time to try and make that something readable, something in cursive or Webdings or anything like that. Honestly, just use the font that is already set on your email. There's no reason to change much there. Also, do not use bolding, italics, or underlining very often. In fact, I'd say basically never, okay? The first thing is they come off as rude really easily, okay? You might bold something, italicize something, underline something, and you think you're just giving emphasis, but your recipient might think, wow, that was really rude, okay? Why did they need to do that? So keep that in mind. Also, avoid overusing exclamation points, like every sentence ends in an exclamation point. You know, you don't want to do that. It comes off as a little odd. And then any punctuation like back to back to back. So those examples I have of 4 question marks, or overusing the ellipses, the ... or 5 exclamation points. That's all just too much and not very professional. So if we think, you know, very formal emailing, and then we have slightly more informal emailing, that kind of writing would be like what you send as text to your friends. And that means it's not appropriate for an email, which is a much more formal way of communicating with people. So we want to avoid that. Also, just another reminder that all caps equates to yelling. And I also want to put in a quick note that we do not want to send emails when we are upset, okay? So if you are frustrated about something that you saw maybe in your grade book, or something happened and you're upset about it, try and take a little bit of time. Maybe you send that, let's say it happened in 3rd hour. Maybe you wait until lunch to kind of process through your feelings and then send that email when you're a little bit more calm. Also, double or triple check your writing. I have to admit that even when I send emails, I read those out loud to myself. I want to make sure that it makes sense for everybody. So there's no room for me looking like a fool, but also no room for miscommunication, okay? So if you want your teachers to be able to quickly understand what it is you need to proofread, and you need to write to the best of your ability with complete sentences, capitalization, things like that. So here I have a blank email. I just want to point out a few things. So the first thing is up at the top, you'll see this To button, and that's where you will type, say, your teacher's email or your peer's email, okay, right there. And I have a little note right here. It says the To and the CC, which is always just below the To. So CC means carbon copy. And what that means is you could send a copy of this email to another person. So here's a scenario that you might end up in. Let's say you're working in a small group project. It's you and 2 other people. And your group has collectively decided that you're struggling with something and you want to send an email to your teacher. You could put your teacher's email up in the to, and then you could CC your 2 partners so they are also in on that email and they kind of know what's going on, because then your teacher can hit reply all and respond to all of you so you all know. Now that is a very limited scenario. Most likely you will not be using CC and you will just be sending an email to 1 person, and that's probably your teacher. Now a quick note over here on the right, okay? Always start with just that 2, okay? Do not CC your entire class. That could be really embarrassing if it was something really important and kind of personal, okay? And also do not CC administration. If there's an issue happening in your class, always start with your teacher, and then your teacher can move this as needed to higher levels. The next thing I want to talk about is the subject line. So I talked about how that had to be brief and quick. That goes right here where it says add a subject. Now the subject line, just a quick reminder, needs to be clear, simple, and really quick. It's not your message. So for example, I might just put request for homework right there. And then in this bigger box, this is the body of the email. And this is where you'll type your greeting, the request that you have, the closing, and your name. So this is where the bulk of your writing actually happens. And then of course there's the send. Once you have proofread your email a few times, you can hit send. Now, I have a few other things on a blank email that I want to point out to you. You might need to attach a document, okay? Maybe you need to attach a Word document, or you're having technical issues and you have a screenshot of the issue so you can send it to your teacher. You can attach those things right here. You also can attach them down at the bottom. There's another toolbar, so you could attach a picture or just a document. Also, if you type something up and you realize, oh, you actually found the solution for it or something like that, and you don't need to send the email, you can just click discard. I highly encourage you to do that instead of just Xing out of it. If you just X out of it, it might keep it as a draft. So do try and hit discard if you don't need to keep the email or send it. I also want to point out down here, okay, we have a formatting toolbar, and this is where you could change the font and you could bold things and italicize things and underline things and highlight things and change your font color, but I want to remind you of what I said earlier, and that's over here on the left. We don't want to use strange fonts. We don't want to have extra highlighting, weird formatting. We don't want to use bolding or italics or underlining because it can often come off as rude. So while the toolbar is here, I don't overly encourage you to use too much of it unless your teacher has actually mentioned that they would like to see it. So here I now have a sample email, and this is a good example of an email that a student could send to their teacher. So of course up at the top they have only their teacher's email. There is no need to CC anyone here. And then we have our subject line, which is really needed. And it says missing work for Tuesday 9:15. Notice how specific this is. I know that it's about missing work and I know exactly what day this student is requesting it from immediately. So when I get this, I know, I can respond to that in just a few minutes. Then within the body of my email, I have a nice address here, a greeting, Mrs. Simmons. It could say, hello, Mrs. Simmons, or good afternoon, Mrs. Simmons. And then I have this enter, and then I'm sorry I missed class on Tuesday. I looked at our team and saw that we worked on a get to know you PowerPoint. Would you like me to have this completed before class tomorrow? I get straight to the point. I tell my teacher, I'm sorry I missed. I tell my teacher, I did look at Teams. I knew that we did something. Do you want me to have that finished before class tomorrow? I'm very specific in what I need, okay? Then I have my sign off right here. Thanks and sorry to miss class. And then I have my name. So once that's finished and I've proofread it and I feel really good about it, I can of course hit send and it will go to my teacher. Now here's an example of what not to do, okay? Up here, starting off strong, got the email address in, great. But then this is my subject line. So a few things wrong with it, right? It's in all caps, which means that the student is immediately yelling at me. When I receive this in my inbox and I see all caps, I'm gonna be, I'll get to that in a minute, because I'm immediately thinking, wow, that was really rude, before I've even read the email, okay? So don't do all caps. I would also say that this is somewhat accusatory. It makes it seem like somehow the teacher did something wrong, but if I read the body, it looks like this student overslept, they have an unexcused absence, so they do need to take some responsibility for that. Additionally, a better topic here would be, missing work for absence on, Tuesday, just like that previous email, okay? And then notice in the body of my email, I have no greeting. Okay, it doesn't say Mrs. Simmons, it doesn't say, hello, I've got nothing there. And then it just launches into the message. I know I missed yesterday's assignment, but I just couldn't wake up because it is all too early and I don't think I should have gotten a 0 on this, so can you send me the assignment so I don't have a bad grad? Okay, we have a lot of issues there, right? It's got a little bit of some excuse there, and I'm not going to pretend like I'm not a huge fan of early mornings, okay? But we have to do it. That is when school starts, 7 a.m., okay? So maybe this could say something instead like, I realize I overslept and that's on me. What can I do to get that 0 out of the grade book so I can have a better grade? And I also want to point out that this is a huge run-on sentence. There's a lot of basic grammatical issues, spelling issues, grad instead of grade. There's 4 question marks at the end, which just comes off a little rude. And then I also don't have a sign-off, and I don't have a student's name tied to it, okay? So this is just not a great example of what an email should look like to your teacher, especially when things are maybe a little tricky when it comes to a 0 on an assignment that you would like to fix. Always try and assume positively as much as you can. So thank you for watching. I want to tell you that you will now be going back to your advocacy meeting once I end this live event. And your advocacy teacher will actually guide you through applying some of this new knowledge. They have a few more slides that they can show, and you guys could collectively talk through what's good and bad about those emails. They also have a little quiz that they could use if they'd like, and there's also a document where you can practice writing good and bad emails just to kind of get some experience with both, okay? So again, thank you for watching. Remember, email is something you'll use your entire life in the professional world. It's an important skill to start honing now. Best of luck.